Amidala. Nice to be here with you today. Happy to say that I finally bullied Darren into letting me on the stage, because I think for the last 6 years I've been a prolific nominator of for People for Awards. I've also won an award for listening, and I've attended every year. So thank you, Darren, for having me on the stage to help you celebrate your 10 years of your amazing work. So, my name's Sarah and I'm from Salford, near Manchester, if you don't know that. We're on Manchester with Salford. There's lots of us here, which I'm also very proud of. And yeah, I guess I've come, as you can see, I've got no notes, I'm speaking from the heart. We don't know what's going to come out, but we'll see. So, the way I wanted to start this was to think about what does it mean to be a lived experience leader, because that's what I often am described as. And if you'd have asked me 15 years ago, I wouldn't have known when I was working in the chippy. If you'd have asked me when I was at school, I wouldn't have known when I was just, you know, a naughty kid who was in the care system, who had grown up with a family with parents that were in active addiction to heroin. And to me, none of that, you know, at the time seemed like a problem. Like, that was my life, and I was fine with it and comfortable with it. And what I saw around me was very similar to that, and so I never questioned it. I was very lucky at school in that there were some teachers that recognised some qualities in me, despite the naughtiness and cheekiness and the answering back and the asking of too many questions and pushing the boundaries. And they put me forward for a scholarship to a grammar school in Manchester, and I actually went on to win that scholarship, but in the end decided not to go because it wasn't for people like me. I was not going to fit in that space. And I also picked up from my family that they were not going to be able to afford for me to go to this school. Even just the uniform was beyond us. And so very happily said, oh no, I don't even want that. I'm happy where I am. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to go to school with my friends. And that's how it went. And school was school. I left with some GCSEs. And I then went on to study in college for a week, sociology and psychology at one of the top colleges in Manchester. But again, I just didn't fit there. I didn't feel like I could be myself in those spaces. And so I left and I went joyriding around Blackpool and all different places with my friends, having loads of fun because we'd just finished school. And that was just life. And I went on to work a cash in hand jobs, like, you name it, I've done it. I've probably cold called you to sell you a telephone, you know, swap you from O2 to Vodafone or something like that. Or I might have knocked on your door to sign you up for Empower Gas and Electric. I might have tried to sell you something from a bag in a pub, you know. Not one of them time the best. But yeah, you get the gist of it. I was just living hand to mouth and doing whatever I could do to provide for myself. Never really having any like aspiration or hopes to be this inspirational lived experience leader, or to ever get out of Salford really. And that went on till I was about 20, and I had a young son. I was a single parent. I'd been through some domestic abuse in that relationship. I was just really lost. I was stuck at home. I wasn't going out, and my little boy was my world. That was what life was about. It was now about making our life better for him. And when he went to school, I was like, oh God, what do I do now? Like, I've gone Monday to Friday, and I'm literally just like watching Jeremy Kennel in the morning and then on a rerun in the afternoon and see the same thing. And why am I wasting my time doing that? I don't know. But that's what I was doing. And on the day when a neighbourhood worker called Kay and a nun, her sister Anne, just decided to knock on my door, and I answered the door in my pink dressing gown, and I'm like, what do you want? And he said, oh, we're just in the area and we're looking for residents who might want to get involved and have a bit of a say on, you know, what they'd like to see happening in their area. I thought, seeing this Jeremy Dial already, so maybe, yeah, I'll go and I'll have a brew and I'll just see what it's about and it'll give me something to do. And that's how it all began, was with these two wonderful ladies knocking on the front door and saying, you know, come out and have a brew with us. And so that's where I went. I joined this group, talking about what did we want to see in Weast, which was the most deprived ward of Salford at the time, rated really highly in the indices of deprivation across Europe, and started to understand a little bit more about politics and power and community. And I was always the person, and I know there'll be people in the room that will laugh, that would just say, I'm not interested in politics, I don't even vote, I don't care about that, because it doesn't care about me, and, you know, my voice doesn't mean anything in that, so, yeah, I don't do it, I'm not involved in it. And people would start to say to me, but everything you do and everything you say is political. I was like, no, it's not. The way I saw it was, I was just coming out, you know, to get out of the house. I didn't really have any intention to change, to be a change maker. But Sister Anne listened to me and she said, you're right in what you're saying there. That's a really good idea. I'd say to him, yeah, but I said this at home and my dad said, like, you don't know what you're talking about, and like, so I just shut up. But you can saying I should carry on. And so she gave me space to speak and have my voice and to explore my experience through my life, and also like the situation that as a community that we were in. And having that space really just empowered me. After that, you just couldn't shut me up. I was at council meetings, I was on the telly. I did a show once, the O'Brien show, and they were talking about, you know, the next big elections. And I remember coming home and my dad said, "You're a fucking dickhead. Why did you say that? Do you know how stupid you sounded talking about refugees like that?" I just said, "Oh, I'm not interested in that now, Dad." And I educated my dad, and I said, actually, this, and this, and that's why you're wrong. And I just felt really empowered by it and found my voice. And I started to go into the council, and this guy to say, "Oh, you're actually really vexatious. You're really argumentative and angry. Like, you've got to come, you know, we don't want to work with you." So I distanced myself from the council, and it became about community and about working with people in my community who, like me, didn't think there was any future for them. People who were working, cashing in, people who were not working at all, people who were in addiction, people that were involved in crime, and saying to them, actually, do you know there's something about you? There's something really special about you, or you've got this really unique talent. Like, let's, you know, share it with me. Tell me more about it. Let's see what that is. And I've really found my power in that space with my community and being a person that someone had been for me, an encourager, and to give recognition to people. And then all of a sudden, after all of this good work going on and me being a volunteer and volunteer facilitator of programs and things like this, Sister Anne, who was training me, she kind of just took me under her wing, with her colleague Joyce. She decided that she was going to retire and she was going to, you know, go back to where she'd lived before in Lytham. And I just felt like, what? This can't stop. Like, all of this work with communities and using the tools of an educationalist called Paulo Freire. He believed that everybody has something important and of value to learn and teach to each other, and we're all students and teachers throughout our lives every single day. And using these tools that she taught me, I said, this has to carry on. And so myself and Anne's colleague Joyce, who is now my full director, decided, okay, we'll keep this going. And we spoke to Sis Brian, we said, look, we don't think this should end. We see that this is changing people's lives. This has changed my life. And I don't actually know what will happen for me if this ends now. I want it to keep going. And so we set up Community Pride CIC, just really taking over what Armin had been doing for the last 15 years in Salford. And that was a really powerful moment for me, to be a co-director, to be a business owner. That was something I never thought would be achievable. And I never, even now, still don't quite believe it. And I still always downplay it and say, oh, we'll just have cake and drink tea and, it's just really nice. But it's not just really nice. It's actually really powerful work, systems change, and recognising that the people that should be at the heart of systems change is people with a direct lived experience who bring all of that wisdom and all of that knowledge from all of their diverse experiences, from all of that trauma that we've been through, who are able to sit with themselves in that and understand where they've been and who they are because of it, and take power from that and not feel ashamed by it. There's many people, I was going up and saying, yeah, I'm a single mum, I'm on benefits, I dropped out of school. It's all quite disempowering, but I took power from it and I said, well, actually, none of that matters, because this is who it's made me now. This is the confidence that it's given me. This is the voice. And Joyce and I have done lots of things. So it's also our 10-year anniversary. We've shown some amazing things in Salford. We've led projects like the Salford Poverty Truth Commission. We've worked with prisoners, ex-offenders, homeless people, single parents, and it's always about starting with what's important to them. What do they need? What change is it that they need in their lives? What do they want to see in their futures? And really working from that point then, okay, well, how do we achieve this, and what support can we put around you to help you to do that? And we've been really lucky to see people that we've worked with go on to set up their own businesses and set up their own groups and their own projects that are really successful in their own rights. And we've also, seen people fall back into crime, go back into prison, pass away, which is the saddest part of this work, I think, when you work with people in a lived experience capacity, that you lose people that, you care about a lot, actually. So that's the side of it that we don't always talk about. And Joyce and I, like to say, I've got this passion about bringing the message of Paulo Freire in, that actually you are a person of value, and it doesn't matter where you come from, where you're at, what your background is. You have something inside of you to contribute that is going to change something for somebody out there. I was really shocked, actually, when we started to work with an organisation called the Open Society, which was based in New York, and it's about building diversity and inclusion within communities. And they invited me onto a program called the German Marshall Fund for the United States, the Transatlantic Inclusive Leaders Network. A big mouthful. And my first instinct was like it was when I was at school and when I was at college. It was like, no, this isn't for me. This is way above me. These are very high-level academic people, and I can't hold my own in that space. And actually what changed was I thought, no, I'm not going with that anymore, actually. I'm just saying yes and pushing through any of the doubts and these, false beliefs that I'd built about myself because of my past experiences, to just ignore that and just say yes. And I started saying yes to everything, which is a good and a bad thing, because as people have said today, you get going out very quickly. But saying yes to this opportunity was massive for me, because it just took me completely out of everything that I knew, out of Salford, out of England, to Paris, Madrid, Estonia, Italy, Amsterdam, all these places, and being invited for meals with like the mayor of Amsterdam in his house, and going to the embassy in Paris, and actually not being allowed in. They said, no, there's not an event in today. And I was like, are you sure? Because I'm here for this. So you just 1 minute, and walkie-talkies, and 10 minutes later somebody comes from upstairs and comes down. Oh yes, she is with us, let her in. So this is what I've been fighting with. But going in those spaces and being with people who I thought were above me, and actually holding my own and having conversations and sharing my lived experience was more powerful than anything they were saying about statistics and diagrams. And I remember speaking in Germany at an event, and this professor came on after me, and he was just like, oh, this is terrible. How am I supposed to follow that? Because he was talking about all the academic nonsense of how to do community development. And I just come on the stage and said, this is what they did in our community, and that's what people achieved by coming together and by doing things together. And he was like, oh God, no. So that made me feel really good then. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to freak at everything. I'm there. And I found this voice that, I've been able to hold, and it's taken a lot of courage actually to overcome all of those things. And as we know, like throughout all of that, I've had shit happening, domestic abuse, family courts, all sorts that, could have stopped me in my tracks, could have broken me. And actually this work kept me going, because I could see actually this is where the power is, this is where my power is. And being together in community made me feel that sense of belonging, really, that we were all looking for. Because although my parents loved me, when you're in acts of addiction, your kids are not at the film front, your addiction is. And so, although they did love me, and they didn't feel loved, and so I sought that in relationships, for bad ones, but now I've found it in the community and the people that I work with. And it just fills me up. And those people actually are what I call my lifeblood, because it keeps me going. And I'm really proud of the people that we work with like this. I'm here today talking, but it's not actually about me, it's about them, and it's about what they can achieve. I've done my bit. I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. I'm happy with what I've achieved. And now I want to see other people reaching that and recognising what they can achieve. So I just want to finish up by sharing some of what Joyce and I and the people that we work with have achieved. So in Salford, we worked with people with a lived experience of poverty, putting them at the forefront of decision making, coming together over a long period of time with decision for like 2 or 3 years with the same decision makers, leading decision makers, to start from a human place, to see ourselves as humans first, and to understand each other a little bit better before we then get into this conversation of, okay, what's wrong, what needs to change, how does it change? And by doing that, we created this space that people often talk about as being a safe space, and where professionals and people with lived experience can kind of drop everything and just come and be themselves, and in that be very vulnerable together. And it's in that vulnerability also is what gives us power when we're doing this type of work, whether you're a lived experience leader or you are a professional working in systems change and trying to work together with your experience leaders, that shared vulnerability of, we don't have all of the answers, we can't necessarily fix everything, but let's figure this out together and see where we get together. It's been a really powerful turning point in Salford, actually, where we were able to make a relationship with the council and do some work with them around council tax, where they stopped using bailiffs to collect council tax debt, and where they put wraparound support in place for people that were struggling to pay the debt, and they switched their thinking from these people just don't want to pay to actually maybe they do want to pay and they need a bit of help, and so how can we help them to do that? And that shift from mistrust to trust as a starting point changed it all, and the council have gone on to make, at the last count, £5 million in collecting council tax debts without having to take anybody to court, without having to use bailiffs. And so that was massive. Thanks, Derek. But that was massive. And we've gone on again to do a second round of that, working with professionals in the city, and we've looked at things like homelessness, neurodiversity, special educational needs, with mums working together to influence systems change to make sure that their children do get the education that they need, and that their families get the support that they deserve, and that they get the diagnoses that are needed in time for the children to get the help that they need. And it's been massive. And the main thing of this, and it's Jude actually, you just put this in my head when we were all low, is just about the people that we work with in communities who come out and join us, and sometimes they don't quite know what they're coming for. A bit like me in the beginning, I'm coming for the brew, some bus fare, and maybe a bit of lunch or some friendship, but they find themselves in that space and they take power from it and they go on to change. And we're really proud of the people that we work with and the changes that they're making in their own lives and also in our community and the lives of other people. And we just hope that we can keep that going, we'll keep our projects running, so that we can continue to support people to empower themselves, really. It's not us empowering them, it's similar to what somebody said earlier about giving the tools to empower yourself. And that's what's so special about the work that we do and that all of you do. So yeah, I say my time is up. Thank you.